My name is Emily Carter, and I'm 30 years old, living in a cramped two-bedroom apartment that barely fits me and my 6-year-old daughter Sophie, who means everything to me, absolutely everything in this world. Most days, I feel like I'm drowning between double shifts at the diner and managing Sophie's chronic kidney condition that requires daily medication just to keep her stable. The prescription costs alone eat up half my paycheck, but what choice do I have when your child's life depends on pills that cost more than rent? Sophie sits at our tiny kitchen table coloring while I count pills into her weekly organizer, making sure each compartment has exactly what she needs. "Mommy, why do I have to take so many medicines?" she asks, looking up at me with those big brown eyes that melt my heart every single time. "Because they keep you healthy, baby, and Mommy wants you to stay strong," I tell her, kissing the top of her head, even though inside, I'm terrified every day that I might mess up her dosing or miss a refill. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. The apartment door opens and in walks Rachel, my older sister, with her perfectly styled hair and designer purse, looking like she stepped out of a magazine, while I'm here in yesterday's uniform, still smelling like coffee and bacon grease. "Emily, honey, you look exhausted," she says, setting grocery bags on the counter, and I feel that familiar mix of gratitude and shame because Rachel always seems to have it together while I'm barely keeping my head above water. "I brought some groceries and Sophie's favorite ice cream," Rachel announces, and Sophie squeals with excitement, running to hug her aunt, who spins her around, making her giggle. The sound fills our little apartment with joy, and for a moment, I forget about the stack of medical bills on my dresser and the fact that I'm 3 days behind rent. "Rachel, you don't have to keep doing this," I say, even though we both know I need the help desperately. "Don't be silly, we're family," she replies, unpacking organic fruits and expensive crackers that I could never afford. Besides, Mark and I love spoiling our favorite niece. She tickles Sophie, who dissolves into giggles again, and I watch them together, feeling a complicated knot in my chest, because Rachel has always been the successful one, the one who married well and lives in that beautiful house across town, while I'm here struggling just to keep the lights on. "Actually, Emily, I was thinking," Rachel says, in that careful tone she uses when she's about to offer help, "what if I take Sophie for a few hours tomorrow, so you can pick up that extra shift you mentioned? You need the money, and Sophie loves spending time with Uncle Mark." The offer hangs in the air between us, and I hesitate, because accepting help feels like admitting failure. But the truth is, I do need those extra hours desperately. "Are you sure it's not too much trouble?" I ask, already knowing I'll say yes, because I have to say yes. She'll need her evening medication at 6 sharp, and she can't have any dairy after 4 because it interferes with absorption. I rattle off the instructions that have become second nature to me, while Rachel nods attentively, pulling out her phone to make notes. "Don't worry, sis, I've got this," Rachel says confidently, and something about her tone bothers me slightly, but I push the feeling away, because she's offering to help when no one else does. "You just focus on work and let Aunt Rachel handle everything," she adds, scooping Sophie up again, who claps her hands excitedly about tomorrow's adventure. Later, after Rachel leaves with promises to pick up Sophie at noon, I sit on our worn couch staring at the pill organizer she helped me fill, wondering why I feel so unsettled when I should feel grateful. Maybe it's just exhaustion, or maybe it's the way Rachel's eyes lingered on Sophie's medication bottles longer than necessary. But that's ridiculous. Rachel has always been protective of Sophie, almost overly so sometimes. I shake my head, trying to dismiss these weird thoughts and focus on tomorrow's extra shift, which will help me catch up on bills and maybe even buy Sophie some new clothes. She's growing so fast lately, and her current wardrobe consists mostly of hand-me-downs from church charity drives. Not that she complains. Sophie never complains about anything. Even when she's not feeling well, she just gets quieter and clings to me more. "Mommy, will Aunt Rachel remember my medicine tomorrow?" Sophie asks from her bed, where I'm tucking her in with her favorite stuffed rabbit. "Of course, baby. Aunt Rachel loves you very much, and she wrote down all the important times," I reassure her, though something in her question makes my stomach tighten slightly. "She won't forget, will she, Mommy? Because I don't feel good when I don't take them." No, sweetheart, she won't forget, I promise, kissing her forehead and hoping I'm right, because Rachel has never let us down before. She's always been there when I needed her most, even when our parents couldn't or wouldn't help after Sophie was born. Aunt Rachel is very responsible, and she knows how important your medicine is. As I turn off Sophie's light and close her door, I try to push away the nagging feeling that something isn't quite right with Rachel lately. She seems more anxious, more eager to help, specifically with Sophie's care. But maybe I'm just being paranoid because I'm so tired and stressed all the time that every shadow looks threatening when you're barely holding on. The next evening, when Rachel brings Sophie home, my daughter looks pale and listless, clinging to my leg without her usual chatter about her day. How was she? I ask Rachel, who seems unusually eager to leave. Oh, she was perfect as always, Rachel replies, but something in her voice sounds off, strange maybe. We had lunch and watched movies, just a quiet day. Did you remember her 6 o'clock dose? I ask, while feeling Sophie's forehead, which seems slightly warm. Of course, Emily. Don't you trust me? Rachel snaps, then immediately softens her tone. Sorry, I'm just tired from work. You know how it is. She gives Sophie a quick hug and hurries out the door before I can ask more questions, leaving me standing there with an uneasy feeling growing in my chest. That night, Sophie barely touches her dinner and falls asleep on the couch during her favorite cartoon, which never happens. She's usually bouncing off the walls until bedtime. Come on, baby, let's get you to bed, I whisper, carrying her to her room and noticing how much lighter she feels in my arms, like she's lost weight, even though it's only been one day. The next morning, Sophie complains that her tummy hurts and she doesn't want breakfast, which sets off every alarm bell in my head because she's usually hungry in the mornings. Sweetie, did you take all your medicine with Aunt Rachel yesterday? I ask, trying to keep my voice calm while my heart races. I think so, Mommy, but Aunt Rachel gave them to me different than you do. Different how? I press gently, while Sophie shrugs and curls up on the couch. She put them in applesauce, but they tasted funny, and there weren't as many. My blood runs cold because Sophie's medication has a very specific taste and dosage that can't be altered without serious consequences. Funny how, baby? Can you tell Mommy? Like water, Mommy, like when you put too much water in juice, Sophie explains innocently, while I feel the room spin around me. Because if Rachel diluted Sophie's medication or gave her less than prescribed, it could explain why she's feeling so unwell. Did Aunt Rachel say anything about your medicine being different? She said it was the same, just easier to swallow, Sophie mumbles against my shoulder, and I want to scream, because those pills can't be crushed or diluted, they have to be swallowed whole for proper absorption. But maybe I'm overreacting, maybe Rachel just made an honest mistake, because she doesn't deal with Sophie's medication regularly like I do. I check Sophie's pill organizer, which Rachel returned yesterday, and count the remaining doses. Something feels wrong, but I can't put my finger on what exactly. The numbers seem right, but the pills look different somehow, smaller maybe, or a slightly different color. But that could be a different batch from the pharmacy, couldn't it? When Rachel calls later to check on Sophie, I mention her not feeling well. Oh, that's probably just from staying up late watching movies, Rachel says dismissively. You know how kids get cranky when their routine is disrupted. Nothing to worry about. But her quick explanation felt rehearsed, like she was expecting this conversation. Rachel, I need to ask you something about Sophie's medication, I began carefully. Did you give her the full dose at 6, exactly the way I showed you? There's a pause that lasts too long before Rachel responds with irritation in her voice. Emily, of course I did. What kind of question is that? Do you think I'd mess around with something that important? No, of course not. I start, but Rachel cuts me off. Look, I know you're stressed and tired, but don't take it out on me. I'm trying to help here. Her defensive tone makes my stomach clench because this isn't how Rachel usually responds to my concerns. She's usually patient and understanding, not angry and dismissive. After hanging up, I sit with Sophie, who's still pale and listless, staring at her medication bottles and trying to figure out what's bothering me so much about yesterday. Maybe it's the way Rachel seemed so eager to handle the medicine herself, or how she packed up Sophie's things so quickly when I got home, or the way she avoided eye contact when discussing the medications. Mommy, am I sick again? Sophie asks quietly, and my heart breaks because she's learned to recognize when something's wrong with her body. No, baby, you're just having an off day. Tomorrow you'll feel better, I promise, while making a mental note to call her doctor if she doesn't improve, because missing or altering doses of her kidney medication could cause serious complications. That night, I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, trying to convince myself I'm being paranoid, that Rachel would never do anything to hurt Sophie. She loves her niece and has always been supportive, even if she doesn't fully understand the complexity of Sophie's medical needs. But the nagging doubt won't leave me alone, because something felt different about yesterday, something I can't quite name. Over the next few weeks, I start paying closer attention to the patterns, and what I notice makes my blood run cold. Every time Rachel babysits, Sophie comes home tired and unwell, and every time I check the medication supply, it seems lighter than it should be. Not dramatically, but enough to make me second-guess myself constantly. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now, back to the story. I start keeping a detailed log, writing down exact pill counts before Rachel's visits and checking them afterward. The numbers never quite add up right, and when I mention it, Rachel always has an explanation. "Oh, Emily, you must have miscounted. You're so tired lately." Or maybe the pharmacy shorted you again. You know how they are with insurance. "Rachel, something's not right with Sophie's medication," I say during one of her visits, while Sophie naps on the couch, looking pale and exhausted again. Rachel's face hardens, and she sets down her coffee cup with more force than necessary. "Emily, what exactly are you accusing me of?" Her voice has an edge I've never heard before, sharp and dangerous. "Because if you're suggesting that I would do something to hurt Sophie, then maybe you need professional help." The way she says professional help feels like a threat disguised as concern. "I'm not accusing you of anything. I'm just saying something isn't adding up. Maybe someone at the pharmacy made a mistake, or maybe I am miscounting, but Sophie's health is suffering, and I need to figure out why." Rachel softens slightly, but there's still something calculating in her eyes. "Emily, honey, you're working yourself to death, and stress can make you paranoid." She reaches over to touch my arm, but I flinch away instinctively. "Maybe you should talk to someone about managing your anxiety, because this suspicion isn't healthy for you or Sophie." "My anxiety?" I repeat, feeling anger rise in my chest. "Rachel, my daughter is sick, and her medication is disappearing. That's not anxiety. That's legitimate concern." But even as I say it, a voice in my head whispers, "What if she's right? What if you are losing it? What if the stress of single motherhood is making you see problems that don't exist?" "Look at yourself, Emily," Rachel says with fake sympathy. "When's the last time you slept a full night or ate a proper meal? You're running yourself into the ground, and now you're blaming me for trying to help?" She stands up, gathering her purse with sharp movements. "Maybe I should stop babysitting if you can't trust me." The threat hangs in the air between us because we both know I can't afford to lose her help. I need those extra shifts to pay for Sophie's medication and rent and food. "Rachel, please don't," I say, hating how desperate I sound. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to sound accusatory. I'm just worried about Sophie." "Then maybe you should focus on being a better mother instead of pointing fingers at the people who actually care about you," Rachel snaps, and the words hit me like physical blows because they echo every fear I have about my parenting, every doubt that keeps me awake at night. Sophie needs stability, not a paranoid mother who sees threats everywhere. After Rachel leaves, I sit on the couch next to sleeping Sophie and cry, because maybe she's right. Maybe I am losing my grip on reality. Maybe the stress has finally broken something inside me. But then Sophie stirs and mumbles, "Mommy, my tummy hurts again." and I know something is wrong, beyond my imagination or stress. That evening, I call my best friend Maya, who's been my rock since high school. Maya, I need to talk to someone about Rachel, I say once she answers. Something's happening with Sophie's medication, and Rachel thinks I'm being paranoid, but my gut is screaming that something's wrong. Slow down, Emily. What exactly is happening? Maya says in her calm nurse voice, the one that always makes me feel less crazy. Start from the beginning and tell me everything. So I do, starting with the first time Sophie came home unwell after Rachel's visit and ending with today's confrontation. Emily, honey, that doesn't sound like paranoia to me, Maya says after I finish. That sounds like someone is messing with Sophie's medication and gaslighting you when you notice. Hearing someone else validate my concerns makes me weak with relief because I was starting to doubt my own sanity. But why would Rachel do that? She loves Sophie, I protest, even though part of me already knows the answer. She's always been there for us. She wouldn't hurt Sophie just to hurt me, would she? But even as I say it, memories surface of Rachel asking for money recently, claiming car troubles and unexpected expenses. Emily, people do desperate things when they're in trouble, and addiction makes people do things they never thought they'd do. The word addiction hangs in the air, because I've noticed Rachel looking thinner lately, more anxious, her hands sometimes shaking when she thinks no one is watching. You think Rachel is using drugs? I whisper, because saying it out loud makes it real, makes it a possibility I have to consider. But she seems so put together, so successful. Even though, now that I think about it, Rachel's visits have become more frequent, more insistent, especially when it comes to helping with Sophie's care. Emily, prescription medications, especially for chronic conditions, can be worth a lot of money on the street, Maya explains, and my world tilts, because Sophie's kidney medication is expensive and highly regulated. If someone was desperate enough, they might steal pills and replace them with something else or dilute them. The conversation ends with Maya offering to help me figure out what's really happening. But first, I need to document everything. I need proof, because no one will believe that successful, put-together Rachel is stealing medication from a sick child without concrete evidence. And I need to protect Sophie from whatever is happening, even if it means destroying my relationship with my sister. The next day, I bundle Sophie up and drive to Maya's house, my hands shaking on the steering wheel, because I need someone who understands medical stuff to look at my daughter and tell me I'm not going crazy. Maya opens the door in her scrubs, just home from her shift at the hospital, and takes one look at Sophie's pale face before ushering us inside. Emily, what's wrong with our girl? Maya asks, kneeling down to Sophie's level with that gentle bedside manner that makes her such a good pediatric nurse. Hi, sweetie. Do you remember Aunt Maya? Sophie nods weakly and allows Maya to feel her forehead and look at her eyes with a small flashlight. She's been like this on and off for weeks, I explain, while Maya examines Sophie with practiced hands. Always after Rachel babysits, and I keep finding discrepancies in her medication, but Rachel says I'm being paranoid, and maybe I am. But Maya, she looks sick, doesn't she? Maya's expression grows serious as she checks Sophie's pulse and looks at her fingernails. Emily, her coloring is off, and she's showing signs of dehydration, she says quietly, Sophie can't hear. When did she last have her full medication dose? And my heart sinks, because Maya sees what I see, which means I'm not crazy. I honestly don't know anymore, I whisper, feeling tears threaten. Rachel always insists on handling the evening doses when she babysits, and lately Sophie comes home saying they tasted different or there weren't as many. Maya's jaw tightens, and she stands up with that look she gets when she's processing medical information. Emily, can you get me Sophie's medication bottles? Maya asks, and I retrieve them from my purse, watching as she examines each pill carefully under the light. These look right, but... She pauses, opening the bottle of Sophie's most important kidney medication. Emily, how many of these should be left based on when you last filled it? I pull out my phone and check my medication log, which has become obsessively detailed. There should be 18 left, I say, and we count together, coming up with only 14. That's 4 pills missing in 3 days, Maya. That's not a mistake. That's deliberate. And saying it out loud makes my stomach clench with fear. Emily, I need you to listen to me carefully, Maya says, sitting me down while Sophie plays with blocks in the corner. Kidney medication like Sophie's has street value because people without insurance, desperate for pain management, will buy anything that might help. Her words hit me like ice water because she's confirming my worst fears. You think Rachel is selling Sophie's pills? I say, barely above a whisper. And Maya nods grimly. The symptoms Sophie's showing are consistent with missed doses. Her kidney function is being compromised, Emily, and that's dangerous. The medical terms make it real, make it terrifying, because this isn't just about trust anymore, it's about Sophie's life. But Rachel loves Sophie. She wouldn't, I start, but Maya cuts me off gently. Addiction makes people do things they never thought possible, Emily. I've seen it destroy families before. She reaches over and squeezes my hand. The person you're dealing with isn't really Rachel anymore. It's someone desperate enough to steal from a sick child. What do I do, Maya? I ask, feeling helpless, because confronting Rachel directly got me nowhere except gaslighted and threatened. How do I prove what's happening without putting Sophie at risk? Maya thinks for a moment, then gets that determined look she had in nursing school when facing impossible cases. We need documentation, Emily, she says, pulling out a notebook. First, we're going to photograph every pill in Sophie's bottles and count them exactly. Then, we're going to set up a system to catch Rachel in the act. The word catch makes me flinch because it means treating my sister like a criminal. I can't spy on Rachel, Maya. She's my sister, I protest, even though part of me knows that's exactly what I need to do. What if she finds out? What if she stops helping altogether? I can't afford to lose those extra shifts. The practical concerns war with my moral obligations, and I feel torn in half. Emily, look at Sophie, Maya says firmly, and I turn to see my daughter, pale and listless, playing half-heartedly with toys. She's getting sicker every time Rachel has access to her medication. Maya's voice softens. You're not betraying Rachel by protecting your child. You're being a mother. We spend the next hour planning how to document everything. Maya suggests hiding a small recorder during Rachel's next babysitting session and marking the medication bottles in a way that will show tampering. If Rachel is selling Sophie's pills, we'll catch her, Maya promises. And if she's not, then we'll have peace of mind. What if this destroys our family? I ask, because Rachel has been my only support system for years. What if everyone thinks I'm crazy for suspecting her? Maya takes my hands and looks me straight in the eye with that fierce protectiveness that made us best friends in the first place. Emily, your family is you and Sophie, she says firmly. Anyone who would endanger a child's health for their own benefit has already destroyed the family. Her words sting because they're true, but they also give me strength because Maya sees this clearly in a way I can't. As we leave Maya's house with a concrete plan, Sophie asks, Mommy, why were you and Aunt Maya whispering? And I realize that even at 6 years old, she senses something is wrong. We were just talking about keeping you healthy, baby, I tell her, which is true, even if it's not the whole truth. Driving home, I feel both terrified and relieved because Maya validated everything I suspected and gave me a path forward. But I also feel sick because tomorrow I'm going to start treating Rachel like a sister, and that feels like crossing a line I can never uncross. 3 days later, Rachel calls, offering to pick up Sophie's prescription refill from the pharmacy, which should make me grateful, but instead sends alarm bells through my head. Oh, that's so helpful, Rachel, I say, trying to sound normal, but I can pick it up myself on the way home from work. Don't be silly, Emily. I'm driving right past there anyway.
Besides, you work too hard. Let me handle this one small thing. And something about her eagerness to control Sophie's medication makes my skin crawl. Actually, Rachel, I prefer to pick up Sophie's medications myself. It helps me keep track of her medical schedule. There's a long pause before Rachel responds with forced lightness. Emily, you really need to learn to accept help when it's offered. But she shows up at my apartment anyway, an hour later, with that bright smile that doesn't reach her eyes. Surprise! I picked up Sophie's medication after all, she announces, holding up the pharmacy bag. Thought I'd save you a trip since you're always so stressed about time. My hands shake as I take the bag because she went anyway, despite my clear request not to. Rachel, I specifically said I wanted to handle this myself, I say, trying to keep my voice calm while Sophie watches cartoons nearby. Why did you pick them up when I asked you not to? Because I care about Sophie, and I worry about you forgetting important things when you're overwhelmed, Rachel snaps, then immediately switches to that fake concerned tone. Emily, you've been so scattered lately, missing appointments, forgetting conversations. Maybe you should see someone about your memory. That evening, after Rachel leaves, I call Maya. She picked up the prescription anyway, despite me saying no, I tell her, and she's starting to suggest I have memory problems or mental health issues. Maya makes an angry sound through the phone. That's classic gaslighting, Emily. She's trying to make you doubt yourself. Maya, I need to know where she goes after she leaves here, I say, the words that have been building in my chest all day. I need to follow her and see what she's really doing. It feels wrong planning to spy on my sister, but Sophie's pale face and Maya's warnings echo in my mind. Are you sure you're ready for that? Maya asks gently. Because once you see proof, you can't unsee it, Emily. But I'm already grabbing my car keys because Sophie deserves better than a mother who ignores obvious signs of danger just to avoid uncomfortable truths. 2 nights later, when Rachel offers to babysit again, I pretend to agree, then circle back to park down the street from my apartment building with a clear view of the exit. Rachel's silver sedan pulls out at 7:30, and I follow at a distance, my heart pounding so hard I can barely think straight. She drives to the rough part of town, past the abandoned factory and empty lots, until she pulls into a gas station that's seen better days. I park behind a dumpster and watch through my windshield as Rachel sits in her car, checking her phone constantly like she's waiting for someone. At 8:15, a beat-up pickup truck pulls up next to her, and a man gets out, someone I don't recognize, with greasy hair and clothes that hang off his thin frame. He approaches Rachel's car, and they talk through her open window, their body language tense and secretive. Then I see it. Rachel reaches into her purse and pulls out a small bottle the size of Sophie's medication containers and hands it to the man, who examines it briefly before passing her what looks like cash, folded bills that Rachel counts quickly before stuffing into her wallet. My world stops because there's no denying what I just witnessed. My sister just sold what has to be Sophie's medication to some stranger in a gas station parking lot for money. Actual cash money that she's counting like it matters more than my daughter's life. The man gets back in his truck and drives away, while Rachel sits in her car for another few minutes before driving off in the opposite direction. I follow her home to the beautiful house she shares with her husband, Mark, wondering how she'll explain this extra money, or if she even has to.
When I get back to my apartment, Sophie is asleep on the couch and Rachel is washing dishes, humming softly like she didn't just commit a crime against a child. How was she? I ask, trying to keep my voice normal even though my hands are shaking with rage and disbelief. Perfect as always, Rachel says without turning around. Gave her the medicine at 8 sharp and she went right to sleep. But I know that's a lie, because I just watched her sell Sophie's medicine to a stranger, which means my daughter got nothing tonight, or worse, something dangerous instead. Rachel, can I see the medication bottle? I ask, and she freezes at the sink before turning around with that fake concerned expression. Emily, what's with all the suspicion lately? It's really starting to worry me. But she reaches into her purse and hands me the bottle anyway. The pills inside look right, but I know they're not because I watched the real ones get sold 40 minutes ago, which means these are something else entirely, substitutes or placebos or worse. And Rachel is standing in my kitchen acting like nothing happened while my daughter's health deteriorates. These look fine, Rachel, I say, because I can't let her know I followed her. Not yet. Not until I have a plan. Sorry for being so paranoid lately. And she smiles that bright fake smile that makes my stomach turn, because now I know exactly what kind of person my sister really is. The next morning, I call Maya from work, whispering into my phone during my break. I saw her, Maya. She sold Sophie's medication to some man in a parking lot. My voice cracks because saying it out loud makes it real, makes it something I can't pretend didn't happen. Oh, Emily, I'm so sorry, Maya says, and I can hear the anger in her voice. But now we know for sure, which means we can do something about it. She pauses. We need to record her admitting it, Emily. You need to get her to confess. How do I do that without making her suspicion, I ask, because Rachel has already started questioning my mental state, and pushing harder will only make her more defensive. She's getting paranoid about my questions and threatening to stop helping altogether. You're going to have to be smart about it, Maya explains. Act like you're starting to believe her gaslighting. Pretend you think you're losing your memory and ask her to help you figure out what's wrong with Sophie's medication. The plan makes sense, but it feels like stepping into a trap. That evening, I set up my phone to record and leave it on the kitchen counter while Rachel babysits, pretending to go to work, but actually hiding in Maya's car parked outside, watching my apartment building, and praying that Rachel will say something incriminating while she thinks I'm gone. When I return home at 10, Rachel is sitting on my couch, scrolling through her phone, while Sophie sleeps. How was she tonight? I ask, settling down next to Rachel and starting the conversation I've rehearsed with Maya. She seemed really tired when I left. Oh, you know how kids are, Rachel says dismissively. She had her medicine and went right to sleep. But I know that's not true, because Sophie hasn't been getting her real medication for weeks, maybe months, and tonight was no different. Rachel, I need to ask you something, I say carefully, and please don't get mad, but I think something might be wrong with Sophie's medication. Rachel's body tenses slightly, but she keeps her voice casual. What do you mean, wrong? Well, she keeps getting sicker after taking them, and I'm wondering if maybe the pharmacy is giving us the wrong pills or the wrong dosage, I continue, following Maya's script. You're so much better at medical stuff than I am. Maybe you've noticed something I haven't. Rachel relaxes slightly, which tells me she thinks I'm buying into her narrative about my incompetence. Emily, you've been under so much stress lately. Maybe you're just overthinking things, she says. But what if I'm not overthinking? What if someone is tampering with Sophie's medication or stealing some of it? Rachel's face goes completely blank for just a second before she recovers, but that micro-expression tells me everything. Emily, who would steal medication from a sick child? Rachel says with perfect fake horror. That's a terrible thing to even think about. But her voice has that rehearsed quality that means she's prepared for this conversation. I don't know, maybe someone desperate for money, I suggest, watching Rachel's face carefully. And there it is, a flash of guilt quickly covered by defensive anger. Maya needs to mind her own business, Rachel snaps, and you need to stop letting her poison your mind against your own family. The defensive response is exactly what Maya predicted. Someone innocent would ask more questions. Someone guilty deflects blame. I'm not letting anyone poison my mind, Rachel, I say, with more force than I intended. And the only common factor is that it happens after you babysit. Rachel stands up abruptly, her mask slipping completely. So now you're accusing me directly, she says with venom in her voice, after everything I've done for you, ungrateful little Emily who can't even take care of her own child properly? I'm not accusing you of anything, I backtrack quickly. I'm just trying to understand what's happening. But Rachel is already gathering her things with sharp, angry movements that confirm every suspicion I've had. Maybe the problem isn't Sophie's medication, Emily, Rachel says coldly. Maybe the problem is that you're an unfit mother who's so stressed and paranoid that you can't see reality anymore. The words hit like physical blows because they target every insecurity I have.
Rachel, please don't leave angry, I say, following her to the door. I'm sorry for questioning you. I'm just scared for Sophie. But she turns around with an expression I've never seen before. Pure, calculating malice. You should be scared, Emily, she says quietly, because if you keep spreading these ridiculous theories about me, people might start wondering if you're mentally stable enough to raise a child. The threat hangs in the air between us, clear and terrifying. After she leaves, I grab my phone and stop the recording with shaking hands, because while Rachel didn't confess outright, her reactions and threats are almost as damning, and more importantly, I now know exactly what kind of person I'm dealing with. Someone dangerous enough to steal from a sick child, and manipulative enough to threaten taking that child away from her mother. 2 days after Rachel's threatening visit, I'm sitting in Maya's kitchen, staring at a tiny recording device that looks like something from a spy movie. Are you sure this will work? I ask, for the 10th time, because the thought of planting surveillance equipment in my own home makes me feel sick to my stomach. Emily, it's voice-activated and the sound quality is excellent, Maya assures me, while showing me how to hide it under Sophie's bed, where Rachel always sits when giving her the evening medication. We just need one clear conversation where she admits what she's doing, I whisper, because Rachel has become increasingly paranoid lately, checking corners and asking weird questions about my daily routine. What if she realizes I'm onto her and just disappears with Sophie? The possibility terrifies me more than anything. She won't find it, Emily, Maya says firmly. And besides, you can't keep living like this, watching your daughter get sicker while pretending everything is normal. She's right, but placing the recorder feels like crossing a line into territory I never thought I'd enter. That afternoon, Rachel calls with her fake, cheerful voice. Hi, Emily. I know we had that little disagreement the other day, but I miss Sophie and wondered if I could take her for a few hours tonight. The request makes my blood run cold, because after her threats, I don't want Rachel anywhere near my daughter.
Actually, Rachel, I think we should take a break from babysitting for a while, I say, trying to sound casual while my heart pounds. Sophie's been under the weather, and I want to keep her close. There's a long pause that stretches uncomfortably before Rachel responds. Emily, you can't keep Sophie isolated just because you're having paranoid thoughts, Rachel says with that patronizing tone that makes my skin crawl. She needs her aunt in her life, and honestly, you need the help whether you admit it or not. I'm not being paranoid, Rachel. I'm being cautious, I reply, but she's already talking over me with increasing agitation. Fine, if you won't let me take her out, then I'm coming over to check on her myself, because someone needs to make sure she's getting proper care. Before I can protest, Rachel hangs up, leaving me staring at my phone in panic, because I'm not ready for this confrontation, and the recording device is still sitting on Maya's kitchen table. Maya, she's coming over tonight, I say, grabbing the tiny device with shaking hands. Then this is perfect, Emily, Maya says, helping me test the recorder one more time. You'll get everything you need to prove what she's doing. But my stomach churns because part of me still hopes Rachel will prove me wrong, that somehow this is all a terrible misunderstanding. An hour later, Rachel arrives at my apartment with an overnight bag and that determined expression that means she's not taking no for an answer. I'm staying the night, Emily, she announces, pushing past me into the living room. Sophie needs consistency, and you're clearly not providing it. Rachel, you can't just move in here, I protest, while she unpacks toiletries and clothes like she owns the place. This is my home, and Sophie is my daughter. But Rachel waves me off dismissively while settling herself on the couch like she belongs there. Sophie, sweetheart, come give Aunt Rachel a hug, she calls, and my daughter runs over with innocent excitement, while I stand there feeling helpless and trapped. Did you miss me, baby? Because I missed you so much. As the evening progresses, Rachel takes over completely, preparing Sophie's dinner, managing her bath time, and insisting on handling the medication routine.
You just relax, Emily, she says with fake concern. Let Aunt Rachel take care of everything tonight. I retreat to my bedroom, but leave the door cracked so I can hear everything that happens. In Sophie's room, where I've hidden the recording device under her bed, exactly where Maya showed me. Rachel's voice carries clearly as she settles Sophie for the night. "Here's your medicine, sweetheart," Rachel says, and I hear the familiar rattle of pill bottles. "Aunt Rachel is going to take some of these for safekeeping, okay?" My blood freezes because she's talking to Sophie like this, like stealing medication from a sick child is just another bedtime routine. "Why do you take my medicine away, Aunt Rachel?" Sophie asks innocently, and my heart breaks because my 6-year-old daughter has been watching this happen for weeks, maybe months. "Mommy says the medicine keeps me healthy." "Well, Aunt Rachel needs to make sure you're getting the right amount, baby," Rachel explains with sickening patience. "Sometimes Mommy gets confused about these things, so Aunt Rachel helps by keeping track." The gaslighting continues, even with a child as the witness. Then I hear Rachel's phone ring, and her voice changes completely. "Hey, it's me," she says quietly, but not quietly enough. "Yeah, I've got the stuff. Meet me tomorrow at the usual place." My hands clench into fists because she's arranging another drug deal while sitting next to my sleeping daughter. "How much this time?" Rachel continues, and I can hear her moving around Sophie's room. "Enough for at least 200, maybe more if you can find extra buyers." The casual way she discusses selling my daughter's life-saving medication makes me want to scream. "No, Emily doesn't suspect anything," Rachel lies smoothly into the phone. "She's too stressed and tired to notice. And besides, everyone knows single mothers can be unreliable with medical schedules." Hearing her trash my parenting to her drug dealer contact pushes me over the edge. The conversation continues, with Rachel giving detailed instructions about meeting times and payment methods, while my daughter sleeps innocently nearby, completely unaware that her aunt is planning to sell the medication keeping her alive. Rachel even jokes about how easy it is to fool doctors into prescribing extra doses. "The kid's so sick anyway, a few missed pills won't kill her," Rachel says with a laugh that chills my blood. "And Emily's so grateful for help, she doesn't ask questions." The casual cruelty in her voice reveals someone I don't recognize, someone capable of endangering a child without remorse. When Rachel finally hangs up, I hear her talking to Sophie again, who must have woken up during the phone call. "Did someone call Aunt Rachel?" Sophie asks sleepily. And Rachel's voice immediately becomes sweet and caring again, like she's switching between personalities. "Just Uncle Mark, baby. Go back to sleep," Rachel coos, while I hear her moving around, collecting pill bottles. "Aunt Rachel will be right here all night to take care of you." But we both know that's not true. Rachel will be meeting her dealer tomorrow with Sophie's medication. The next morning, Rachel leaves early, claiming work commitments, but I know she's meeting Mark to complete another transaction. I retrieve the recording device with trembling hands and listen to everything again, making sure I captured clear evidence of Rachel's crimes. Maya comes over that afternoon, and we listen to the recording together, her face growing darker with each revelation. "Emily, this is more than enough evidence," she says grimly. "Rachel isn't just stealing pills, she's running a full operation, using Sophie's illness as cover."
What do I do now? I ask, because having proof doesn't automatically fix anything. Who's going to believe that successful, respectable Rachel is selling drugs stolen from her own niece? But Maya already has her phone out, looking up numbers. "We're calling the police, Emily," she says firmly. "Specifically, we're calling Officer Daniels, who Maya knows from the hospital where he brings overdose cases. He'll take this seriously because he's seen what addiction does to families." As Maya dials the number, I look at Sophie, playing quietly with her dolls, still pale and tired from missing medication, and I know that no matter how much this hurts, no matter how it destroys our family, I have to protect my daughter, even if it means sending my sister to prison. 3 days later, while I'm getting ready for work, Rachel shows up at my door, unannounced, with that overly bright smile she uses when she's planning something. "Surprise, Emily," she announces, pushing past me into the apartment. "I thought Sophie and I could have a special weekend together, just the two of us." "Rachel, we talked about this," I say, trying to keep my voice steady while my heart races, because after hearing that recording, I never want Rachel alone with Sophie again. Sophie's been having some health issues, and I need to keep her close to monitor her medication. "Exactly why she needs proper care," Rachel says, with that patronizing tone that makes my skin crawl. "Emily, honey, you look exhausted and stressed. Maybe a weekend break would be good for both of you." She's already moving towards Sophie's room, like this conversation is over. "No, Rachel," I say, planting myself between her and Sophie's door. "Sophie is not going anywhere this weekend." Rachel stops moving, and her mask slips, just slightly, revealing something cold and calculating underneath the fake concern. "Emily, what's really going on here?" Rachel asks, with dangerous quiet, because this paranoid behavior is getting worse, and frankly, I'm starting to worry about Sophie's safety in this environment. The threat is barely disguised, and my hands clench into fists. "My daughter is perfectly safe with me," I snap, while pulling out my phone and hitting record, because Maya told me to document every interaction. What's not safe is you having unsupervised access to her medication. Rachel's eyes narrow when she notices my phone. "Are you recording me?" she asks, with genuine surprise that quickly turns to anger. "Emily, this is seriously disturbed behavior. You're acting like I'm some kind of criminal." But her defensive reaction tells me everything I need to know about her guilty conscience. "Maybe because you are acting like a criminal," I say, the words that have been building in my chest for weeks. Stealing medication from a sick child, selling it for drug money, gaslighting me when I notice Sophie getting sicker. Each accusation hits Rachel like a physical blow. "You're completely delusional, Emily," Rachel snarls, dropping all pretense of concern. "I've been nothing but helpful and supportive, while you've been falling apart as a mother." She steps closer with menace in her eyes. "Maybe it's time someone reported your mental state to child services." "Go ahead, Rachel," I say, surprising myself with how calm my voice sounds. "Because when they investigate, they'll find that Sophie only gets sick after you babysit, and that her medication keeps disappearing when you're around." The recording device captures every word. "You have no proof of anything," Rachel spits, but there's panic creeping into her voice. "And even if you did, who's going to believe that I would hurt Sophie?" She's right about one thing. People will find it hard to believe, but I have more than suspicions now.
Mommy, why are you and Aunt Rachel yelling? Sophie appears in the hallway, looking scared and confused, while Rachel immediately switches to her sweet aunt persona. "Hi, baby. Aunt Rachel was just telling Mommy about our weekend plans." "Actually, sweetheart, Aunt Rachel was just leaving," I say, scooping Sophie up protectively. "She won't be babysitting anymore." Rachel's face contorts with rage at being dismissed in front of Sophie, who represents her main source of stolen medication. "You can't keep me away from Sophie, Emily," Rachel threatens. "I'm her aunt and I have rights." The legal threat makes my blood run cold because Rachel always has been smarter about these things than me. And when people hear about your paranoid accusations, they'll see who's really unfit. "What do you need, Aunt Rachel?" Sophie asks innocently from my arms. "Do you need more of my medicine bottles like always?" The innocent question hits Rachel like a bomb because it confirms everything I've suspected in front of my recording device. Rachel's face goes completely white as she realizes what Sophie just said.
No, baby, Aunt Rachel doesn't need anything, she stammers, while I hold my breath, hoping Sophie continues talking. Aunt Rachel has to go now. But you always take my medicine bottles, Sophie persists with the brutal honesty of childhood. Mommy gives me pills, but then Aunt Rachel takes the bottles away and they're empty. Each word is another nail in Rachel's coffin, recorded clearly on my phone. Sophie's confused, Emily, Rachel says, desperately trying to control the narrative. Children her age don't understand medical routines. But the damage is done because Sophie's innocent testimony is more damning than any adult accusation could be. No, I'm not confused, Sophie says with 6-year-old indignation. Aunt Rachel puts my pills in her purse and tells me not to tell Mommy because it's our secret. The word secret makes my vision go red with rage because Rachel has been manipulating my daughter. You taught her to keep secrets about her medication, I say with deadly quiet. You made a sick child complicit in your crimes. Rachel backs toward the door as she realizes how completely she's been exposed. That's psychological abuse, Rachel. Emily, please, Rachel says, and for the first time, her voice cracks with what might be genuine emotion. I never meant for Sophie to get hurt. She stops herself before admitting to anything concrete, but the desperation in her voice is clear. You needed drugs more than you cared about my daughter's life, I finish for her, while holding Sophie tighter. You chose your addiction over Sophie's health, and now you're threatening to have her taken away because I figured it out. It's not that simple, Rachel whispers, with tears starting to fall. You don't understand what it's like to need something so badly that you'll do anything. But her explanation sounds hollow, because plenty of people struggle with addiction without stealing from sick children. Get out, Rachel, I say, moving toward the door. And don't come back unless you want me to call the police right now. Rachel hesitates, like she might try to argue, but something in my expression must convince her that I'm serious. This isn't over, Emily, she says quietly, gathering her purse with shaking hands. Family court will be very interested in your recordings and accusations. The threat hangs in the air, but feels weaker now that Sophie has confirmed everything on tape. After Rachel leaves, I sit on the couch with Sophie still in my arms, listening to the recording again, and marveling at how completely my sister incriminated herself. Mommy, why does Aunt Rachel take my medicine? Sophie asks again. Because Aunt Rachel is sick, baby, and she made some very bad choices that hurt you. Sophie nods solemnly, like she understands more than any 6-year-old should have to understand about adult betrayal and addiction. That evening, I call Officer Daniels, whose number Maya gave me. Officer Daniels, this is Emily Carter, and I need to report a crime involving stolen prescription medication, I say with a steadiness that surprises me. And I have recordings to prove it. The next morning, I sit in the police station, clutching my phone and a folder full of documentation, while Officer Daniels reviews everything I've brought him. He's a middle-aged man with kind eyes who listens without judgment as I explain the whole nightmare from beginning to end. Mrs. Carter, this is very serious, Officer Daniels says after hearing the recordings. Prescription drug theft, especially from a minor, is a felony, and endangering a child's health makes it even worse. His validation makes me weak with relief because finally someone in authority believes me. What happens now? I ask, because even with proof, I'm terrified that Rachel will somehow escape consequences. She threatened to call child services on me, and she's always been good at making people believe her. Officer Daniels nods, like he's seen this pattern before. Addiction makes people very manipulative, he explains, while making notes. But evidence doesn't lie, and you've done an excellent job documenting everything. He pauses, looking at Sophie's medical records. Your daughter's health issues support everything you're telling me. Can you arrest Rachel?
I ask, because every day she's free is another day she might try to retaliate or disappear. Or do you need more evidence? Officer Daniels considers this carefully before answering with professional caution. We have enough for an arrest warrant, but I'd like to catch her in the act if possible. He says, it makes the case ironclad and prevents her from claiming the recordings were taken out of context. The thought of setting up a sting operation terrifies me, but I know it's necessary. What would that involve? I ask, and Officer Daniels explains that they would monitor Rachel's next transaction with Mark Reynolds, the man I saw her selling to. We'd have surveillance teams in place and arrest both parties during the exchange. How do we make that happen? I ask, because Rachel hasn't contacted me since our confrontation and might be suspicious about any sudden changes in routine. Officer Daniels suggests having Maya call Rachel with a fabricated emergency that requires immediate babysitting. Addicts are opportunistic, he explains. If she thinks there's a chance to get more medication, she'll take the risk. The plan makes sense, but feels dangerous. 2 days later, Maya calls Rachel, claiming I'm in the hospital with appendicitis and Sophie needs immediate care. Rachel, you're the only person Emily trusts with Sophie's medical routine, Maya lies convincingly. She's asking for you specifically. Rachel agrees to come within an hour, which confirms that her addiction overrides any caution about our recent confrontation. She's desperate, Officer Daniels observes from the surveillance van parked outside my building. I wait in the police station with Sophie while undercover officers position themselves around my apartment building. Maya stays inside, acting as my stand-in, while Rachel goes through her usual routine of settling Sophie and preparing for the medication theft. Target has entered the apartment, comes the radio communication. She's accessing the medication supply now. My heart pounds as I listen to officers describe Rachel's every move, knowing that Sophie's medicine bottles are being emptied again.
She's making contact with the buyer, Officer Daniels says, as another team reports Rachel calling Mark to arrange the meeting. They're setting up the exchange for tonight at the gas station location you identified. Everything is happening exactly as predicted. 6 hours later, officers report that Rachel has arrived at the gas station with what appears to be medication bottles. Buyer is approaching the vehicle now, comes the radio update. Exchange is in progress. We have visual confirmation of drugs and money changing hands. Move in, Officer Daniels commands, and suddenly the radio erupts with activity. Police, freeze, put your hands where we can see them. I hear shouting and car door slamming as both Rachel and Mark are taken into custody with the evidence. Mrs. Carter, it's over, Officer Daniels tells me, hanging up his radio. We caught them with the stolen medication and cash. Both suspects are in custody. The words should make me feel relief, but mostly I just feel empty because my sister is going to prison. What happens to Rachel now? I ask, because despite everything, she's still my sister, still the person who used to read me bedtime stories and teach me to ride a bike. Will she get help for her addiction? The court will probably order treatment as part of her sentence, Officer Daniels explains gently, but she's facing serious charges, including child endangerment and prescription drug trafficking. The legal terms make it real, make it final. Mommy, when is Aunt Rachel coming back? Sophie asks from where she's been coloring quietly at a desk nearby. And my heart breaks, because how do you explain to a 6-year-old that her aunt chose drugs over her safety? Aunt Rachel won't be visiting for a very long time, baby, I tell her honestly. She made some bad choices, and now she has to face the consequences. Sophie nods solemnly and goes back to her drawing, like she somehow understands. 3 hours later, we're finally released to go home, where Maya is waiting with dinner, and the promise that Sophie's medication schedule will never be disrupted again. How do you feel? Maya asks, as we watch Sophie play with toys she hasn't had energy for in weeks. Exhausted, I answer honestly, and sad and angry and relieved, all at the same time. It's hard to explain the complexity of emotions when someone you love betrays you. Mostly, I just want Sophie to get better. She will, Emily, Maya promises. Now that she's getting her real medication consistently, her health should improve quickly.
Already, Sophie seems more energetic, more like herself, and I realize how much I missed my happy, healthy daughter. That night, as I tuck Sophie into bed, she asks, "Mommy, will you make sure my medicine stays safe?" And I promise her that no one will ever steal her medication again. "I'll protect you, baby, always," I tell her. And for the first time in months, I actually believe it's possible. Lying in my own bed later, I think about Rachel, sitting in a jail cell, probably going through withdrawal and feeling abandoned by everyone. But mostly, I think about Sophie, sleeping peacefully in the next room, finally safe from the person who should have protected her most. 6 months later, I'm sitting on a park bench watching Sophie run around the playground with energy I haven't seen in over a year. Her cheeks are pink with exertion instead of pale with sickness, and her laughter carries across the autumn air like music I forgot existed. The transformation has been nothing short of miraculous. "Higher, Mommy! Push me higher!" Sophie calls from the swing set, and I jog over to give her the boost she wants, marveling at how strong she's become since getting consistent medication. "Look how high I can go," she squeals with pure joy, and my heart swells, because this is the childhood she deserves. Maya joins me on the bench with coffee for both of us, and we watch Sophie make friends with other children, something she couldn't do when she was constantly exhausted. "She looks amazing, Emily," Maya says, squeezing my arm, "like a completely different kid." "She is a completely different kid," I reply, watching Sophie climb monkey bars with determination. "The doctor says her kidney function has stabilized completely, and we might even be able to reduce some of her medications eventually." The words still feel surreal, because for so long, Sophie's health seemed fragile and declining. "How are you doing with everything?" Maya asks, because she knows that Rachel's sentencing hearing is next week, and I've been dreading it. "Have you decided if you're going to make a victim impact statement?" The question makes my stomach clench, because facing Rachel in court feels impossible. "I don't know, Maya," I admit honestly. Part of me wants to tell the judge exactly what she put Sophie through, but another part of me just wants to move on and forget it ever happened. The complexity of emotions around Rachel hasn't gotten easier with time. "There's no wrong choice, Emily," Maya says in that wise way she has. "But remember that your statement might help other families in similar situations." She's right that speaking out could matter, but the thought of looking Rachel in the eye while describing Sophie's suffering makes me sick. "Sometimes I wonder if I should have seen it sooner," I confess, a guilt that still haunts me, despite everyone telling me it's not my fault. The signs were probably there, and I missed them because I needed Rachel's help so desperately. "Emily, you trusted your sister because that's what sisters are supposed to do," Maya reminds me firmly. "Rachel exploited that trust and gaslit you when you started questioning things. That's not your fault. That's manipulation by someone who knew exactly how to use your love against you." Sophie runs over breathless and happy, asking for juice from our picnic bag. And as I hand her the sippy cup, I notice her medicine reminder bracelet that she wears proudly now. "Mommy, when do I take my afternoon pills?" she asks, because we've made her medication routine transparent instead of secretive. "In about an hour, sweetheart," I tell her. "Maya will help us remember, won't you?" And Maya nods seriously, because Sophie now has multiple adults involved in her care, instead of just me carrying the entire burden alone. "Can we invite Maya for dinner again this week?" Sophie asks with that hopeful expression she gets when she's trying to extend time with people she loves. "Maybe we could make those pancakes she taught us." The simple request fills me with warmth because Sophie's world has expanded beyond just me and Rachel. "Of course, baby, if Maya's not too busy working," I say. And Maya immediately agrees because she's become like family to us in the best possible way. "Maybe we can even teach you how to make scrambled eggs." Sophie claps excitedly and runs back to the playground. "Emily, I need to tell you something," Maya says once Sophie is out of earshot. "Rachel's lawyer contacted me asking if I would testify about her character at the sentencing hearing." The news hits me like ice water because I hadn't considered that Rachel might try to use our mutual connections.
What did you tell them? I ask, though I'm pretty sure I know Maya's answer. Please tell me you're not going to help her get a lighter sentence. The thought of Maya defending Rachel after everything we've been through makes me feel betrayed all over again. I told them absolutely not, Maya says firmly, and that if they subpoena me, I'll tell the truth about Sophie's condition and how it improved once Rachel was out of the picture. Her loyalty means everything to me, especially when Rachel's supporters have been calling me vindictive. Some people still think I overreacted, I admit, because several family members have suggested I should have handled things privately. They say addiction is a disease, and Rachel needs help, not prison. The guilt trips have been relentless from people who weren't there. Addiction might be a disease, Emily, but stealing medication from a sick child is a choice, Maya says with the fierceness that makes her such a good friend. And threatening to have Sophie taken away when you discovered it, that's not addiction behavior, that's criminal behavior. I know you're right, I say, watching Sophie navigate a climbing wall with confidence. But it's still hard, because I remember Rachel before the drugs, when she really was the sister who protected me. The grief for who Rachel used to be feels almost as heavy as anger for who she became.
You're allowed to grieve the sister you lost, Emily, Maya says gently, but you also need to protect the daughter you saved. Her words remind me why I made the choices I did, and why they were the right choices, even when they felt impossible. That evening, while Sophie takes her bath, I sit at our kitchen table writing the victim impact statement I've been avoiding for weeks. The words come slowly at first, then faster, as I describe the fear, the gaslighting, the way Rachel's betrayal poisoned every interaction we'd ever had. Dear Judge Martinez, I write, my sister Rachel didn't just steal medication from my daughter. She stole my daughter's health, my peace of mind, and my ability to trust the people closest to me. Each sentence feels like pulling thorns from my heart, but also like releasing poison. I write about Sophie's pallor and exhaustion, about the way Rachel made me doubt my own memory and parenting, about the terror of watching my child suffer while the person supposed to help her was actually making it worse. The statement grows to 3 pages of raw truth. But most importantly, I continue, Rachel's actions taught my daughter that the adults in her life might not protect her, that family members might hurt her for their own benefit, that she should keep secrets about her own medical care. The psychological damage feels even worse than the physical. Mommy, what are you writing? Sophie asks, appearing in her pajamas with damp hair, smelling like strawberry shampoo. Is it for school? Her innocent question makes me realize how much I've shielded her from the legal proceedings and how much that protection matters. Just some important grown-up stuff, baby, I tell her, closing the laptop and focusing on our bedtime routine. Nothing for you to worry about, because Sophie has carried enough adult burdens for a 6-year-old and deserves to just be a kid now. Will Aunt Rachel ever come back? Sophie asks while I brush her teeth, and the question still catches me off guard, even though she asks it regularly. I miss her, but I'm glad my medicine doesn't disappear anymore. The contradiction in her feelings mirrors my own. Aunt Rachel made some very bad choices that hurt people, and now she has to stay away to learn how to make better choices. It's the most honest answer I can give without destroying Sophie's faith in family entirely. Like time out, but for grown-ups, Sophie says, with childlike logic that actually makes perfect sense. Maybe someday she'll learn to be nice again. The hopefulness in her voice breaks my heart, because forgiveness comes so easily to children. Lying in bed later, I think about Sophie's question about Rachel coming back, and realize that forgiveness and safety don't have to be the same thing. I can forgive Rachel for being sick with addiction while still maintaining boundaries that protect Sophie. Some betrayals cut so deep that they change the fundamental relationship forever. Rachel crossed a line when she endangered Sophie's life and used my love against me.
those aren't mistakes you can apologize away or explain with addiction. Those are choices that reveal character. Tomorrow, I'll read my victim impact statement and ask the judge to consider not just Rachel's addiction, but Sophie's right to safety and my right to trust that family members won't prey on vulnerability. The recording I made might have sent Rachel to prison, but protecting Sophie sent her toward healing. As I drift off to sleep, I think about the question that haunts every conversation about Rachel. Would you forgive a sibling who endangered your child, or are some betrayals beyond redemption? Maybe the answer isn't about forgiveness at all. Maybe it's about choosing love for your child over loyalty to family that's proven unsafe. Maybe healing means accepting that some people can't be trusted, no matter how much you love them, and that protecting innocence matters more than preserving relationships that have become toxic. The hardest lesson of all is that sometimes love means no. Sometimes family means walking away. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.